fellow friends of the interwebs, and thanks for tuning in. Today I wanted to make a short video just to go over to my main light setup at weddings. When I'm in a hurry and on the go, you need to be versatile, and this works for a lot of other portrait sessions as well. For my main light setup, I've been using the Godox system for probably a couple years now. This is by far my favorite purchase, the Godox AD200. It's 200 watts, it's wireless, it works on radio signals, and don't let the size of this thing fool you. This little sucker here packs a punch. It's got high-speed sync capabilities, and at full power, you can easily shoot at 1.4, 1.8, up to 1/8,000th of a second and capture some pretty dramatic looks in the middle of the daytime. With this, I use Magmod products in conjunction quite a bit. I have the Magsphere. I use the gels. This is the gel wallet. Here's one of the holders for the gels. I use the grids also, and as far as their colors for their gels, this is just a tiny selection, but they have all kinds of stuff that you can use together and really come up with some cool stuff. So with one AD200 and one Magsphere put together, it's very versatile. It's not the softest light as you would get on an umbrella or a softbox, but when you're in a hurry, if you don't have an assistant or a crew to put together umbrellas and softboxes, strip boxes, all the cool stuff you'd like to use in the studio, it works. You don't have the time to do all that. And if you're a one-man band like me most of the time, this is going to work really great. So with one light stand, one AD200, one Magsphere, I can pretty much carry that with me in one arm, and I have my harness with my two cameras that I walk around with, and that'll last me for pretty much the entire session. Now the video that I'm going to be showing some of my images from, I used my D750 and my D600, which I then upgraded to a Sony A7III. That's what I'm recording on right now. But make no mistake, a D600, D610, any older camera you have, as long as the lighting's right and you know how to shape the light, pretty much anything will get it done for you. So for a lot of these photos, I used my D750 with the 17-35. I used the D750 with the 51.8 also. And sometimes I would swap out, other lenses on my D600 depending on what I already had on the other camera. So like I said, for the main light, it's the AD200 with the Magsphere. For secondary lighting, if I need it, my new favorite speed light is the Godox V860. This one is a rechargeable lithium-ion battery, and I've shot 5, 6, sometimes even 8-hour weddings easily on one battery with this. And after a 4 or 5 hour wedding, the battery power still shows that it's full. Before I bought this one, I used the TT685, the AA battery powered flashes, which if you're not shooting full power a lot, 4 AA batteries in here can definitely last at least an entire wedding. So for most of the looks that I like to capture, one light, one AD200 with the Magsphere is going to knock it out of the park for me. If I have time to bring the couple outside for sunset, or if they're asking me to create some other stuff, then I'll bring a couple of light stands, sometimes 3 or 4. I have a nice little pull wagon that I can fold my stands, put it in, and take it out with me. And that's when I incorporate a lot of more gels, a lot of more grids, and we'll get some real creative stuff that they can put on their wall and have for the rest of their life. So with this short video that I'm about to play here, it's a GoPro footage clamped to my stand. It's going to show the AD200 with the Magsphere, and just gives you an idea of the angle where the light is coming from, and it'll show some more examples that I took with this setup. And at the end of that, I'll bring up, I think, 4 or 5 photos tops, and we'll get more in depth on where the light was placed, what lens I used, the creative process behind it, and we'll maybe talk some editing tips on it as well. So let's go ahead and check out what we got so far, and at the end we'll review those photos. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so if you made it this far, I appreciate you taking the time to watch my video. We'll go over some of these image samples and kind of get a little more into detail about what was going on behind the scenes. I'm going to view the photos on my phone. I got some notes written down here with the metadata, and we'll go ahead and go over that as well. So I brought the groom outside for this shot, and I wanted to capture blue skies for sure. Immediately, that's what I was thinking when I brought him outside. So I found a nice spot in the shade where I would have even lighting on him and an area where I could have him comfortably posed. So I shot an ISO 100, and I wanted to shoot at f1.8 to get a nice depth of field in the background there. So in order to shoot at f1.8 and capture those blue skies, I had to crank the shutter speed up to 1/2000th of a second. So at this point in time, you're going to need quite a bit of flash power if you want to get this kind of lighting on your subject and not have the light so close to your subject that you can see it in the frame of the shot. And this is where the 200 watt Godox AD200 really comes into play. So with that one light on a stand to my camera left, maybe 2 feet or so above the subject, angled about 45 degrees down to where it was facing directly at him, I had the mag sphere placed on there with no other modifiers, and we were able to get this shot done, pretty well. It wasn't full power. I want to say in this case it was maybe half or quarter power at the lowest, and with those settings we were able to capture something really nice here with some fairly soft light and balance our flash power with the ambient really nicely. Okay, for our next shot here, the one with the bride on the balcony here, this was something the bride actually requested. She showed me examples of previous weddings that were done here, and you can see all the great work they've done with the place, all the detail that's gone into all the landscaping, and you really want to show off the venue that you're paying so much money for. So when she showed me this, I immediately had a great idea when we were going to get up there for the time to take the shot. So after we did all the formals, we did a couple of photos downstairs, we brought them up to this balcony. And in this case, I used my the Nikon 17-35 wide angle lens. And just to give y'all a heads up, this is an older version. Here, I'll go ahead and take it here off the camera for you so you can see. If I put it up close to the camera, you might be able to see it's got the aperture ring on the bottom here, which is an older, what they refer to as a D version lens. It's still got great glass in front of it. It is an older lens, but these do not have autofocus motors inside of them. These older lenses require a motor in the body itself to drive autofocus. So they're cheaper. They're not as fast as the newer version of these lenses you'll have today, but same glass in front as years ago, just a little bit slower focus. So if you're not shooting sports or moving subjects that are really fast, you can get these more budget-friendly lenses and still take amazingly great quality photos with them. So we got her up there, I got everything set up, and in order to capture the look I was going for here, I shot at 5.6. I didn't want to shoot at 2.8 for this one because I wanted to get more of the background in focus. And I went up to ISO 200 on my D600 because in order to capture those blue skies, again, like I mentioned in the first photo, this one I had to go up to 1/1000th of a second. And I was shooting full power on this because I wanted to capture with the mag sphere a lot of light on that balcony to help blend her in with the background. And in order to accomplish this, I would have basically had to leave the light stand in the frame. So I had, I believe it was her maid of honor, hold the light stand. You can visibly see her on the left side of the frame, light the subject, and then we're going to have to Photoshop that light stand out of there in order to accomplish the finished product. Now, in this case, when it comes to editing, there's a way you can accomplish this. If you have a tripod, you can set your camera up on the tripod, put the light stand in the frame, take the shot with all the necessary settings to get the exposure and the flash blending that you need. Then you move the flash out of the frame, turn it off, and you take a second shot. The reason you move it out of the way and take the second shot without the flash on is that you now have a clean plate to go in and overlay in Photoshop, and you can mask out the light stand. Now on this particular option, I didn't have the tripod set up. I just tried to hold as still as I could, took the 2 shots, and then in Photoshop I took both layers, I did auto align layers, and it did a pretty well job of stacking them on top of each other where I could mask out the light stand. For this third image, I picked a shot on the dance floor inside because for a lot of photographers, it can be a whole new ballgame if you're used to just doing portrait sessions outside, especially if you're mostly a natural light shooter. Then you're asked to shoot an event and they bring everything indoors and the whole ballgame changes. When I do my receptions and dance floors and speeches and a lot of these different events, for the main area where people are standing, I like to set up 4 lights, one in each corner. I kind of build an idea of a square of the room and where I can set each light stand, and if it doesn't have room for me to put 4 flashes where I can cover all angles, I'll at least do a triangle set and use 3 lights for sure, so I can cover all angles no matter which way the couple turns and faces. So here, it happened to be a square format. You can see the table where they were sitting in the background, and if you look right above the groom's head, you can see a little bit of flash hitting the ceiling, which is where I had one set from there. So that is one of the corners of my square setup. Directly behind me was another flash, and then we'll have one about 9 feet to my right on the same plane as I am, and then another flash about maybe 7 or 8 feet in front of me and 4 or 5 feet to the left to finish off the square. So no matter which direction this couple turns, which angle I have to walk around and take photos of, I'm going to have even light put on this couple wherever we go. When you're shooting indoors like this, you're able to actually turn your light power down quite a bit. The darker it is in your area where you're shooting, the less power on your flash that you have to use. So for this particular instance, I was shooting on the D750 with my 50mm, and I put it on ISO 400. So I was able to shoot at 1/200th of a second at f2.8, so I didn't have to utilize high speed sync. I didn't have to take any extra battery power more than was necessary, and we can accomplish all these looks here for that really dramatic look. If I were to use just an on-camera flash here, it would have blasted out my subject directly in the front, and the rest of the frame would have been really dark, and you don't have anything very creative here. With this kind of light setup, you get a rim light behind your subjects, and you get nice hair lights from the left and right side because you have flashes coming from all 4 directions. For a silhouette shot like this one here, it looks complicated, but it's actually very simple. Before I brought the couple up, I took 2 TT685s with a teal and magenta gel and stuck it in the cubby holes by that front door on opposite sides of each other. I faced them towards the walls, fired them at full power, and was able to get that light to reflect over all directions, and it still kept that same color tone, the natural tone that's in that door there. And you can see the light spill of the teal and magenta on the railings out even in front, which turned out to be really perfect for what we were going for there. So after I got all my settings dialed in, I got the blue hour to sky to look really nice. I got the reflections coming out of there, which I was totally happy with. I brought the couple out maybe 10 feet in front of that door, and the hardest part was just focusing on the subject. At this point, I didn't have an extra flashlight or a modeling light to put on there to focus, so I switched it into manual, dialed it in, as close as I could, and took 2 or 3 shots at the most, and we got this amazing silhouette that's one of the couple's favorite photos from the entire wedding. In post afterwards, turned up the contrast really high, turned down the shadows and blacks quite a bit, and actually took some stars to overlay from another photo I've done previously to add into this amazing shot. So at this point, the wedding was pretty much coming to a close. It was gathering shots of just people dancing, laughing, having a great time, the family hanging out together. The wonderful thing about weddings is you have people from family travel so far around the world in some cases to where you never know how long it's going to be till they ever get around and meet each other again. So it's very important to get inside and capture all those details. So these are just some of the photos of my favorite pics from the day I wanted to go over. And with very few minimal lights, minimal setup, especially with the Magmod system, I think you can take some of these tips and really capture some amazing photos of your own. So I hope there's some information, some tips that you can take from this video and go out there and apply it to your next photo shoots, and I would love to see examples of what you've captured before. Please leave any comments or questions you have below. Let me know how you feel about wedding photography and photography in general, especially if you use the AD200 and the Magmod system. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that process. So until next time, get up, get out, and get shooting.